Plus, Ultra presents The Grey Lodge, Will as the Cause of Fire, exposition on Gnostic Set and the Aeon of the Sun. I am Jin the Ninja, and I host a show called Threshold Saints, of which all the brothers have been involved and are axial parts of in their own way. And if you're really interested in it, you can check it out on thresholdsaints.substack.com or on IG or on Spotify or Apple. And you can also check out all of our brothers on our website, which is the true TRVE Greylodge.com, which is what? Which is hosted by, which is maintained, admin, and as well as our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, but that is also maintained by Matt Murrah. So I just want to say I'm grateful that all of you came and that we're all like in consent. We come in consent, we come in synthesis, and we come in sort of like the I'd like to say it's in the spirit of breaking klippas. So let's just call it that for tonight. And let's see where it goes. So we've got two of the brothers in the room right now, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And then if we have more people, we can do a room shout out, or if not, we can just like keep going with the topic. And of course, either of you are welcome to bring up any questions or commentary or preemptive things that you would like to discuss. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with the topic. Is just a framework that we can work within or that we can maneuver around. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. And obviously this is on X, the 10 and the 11 transcending both space and time to come together. Magic is motherfucking real. This is a Metamagic show. Everything we say is speculative. It's free on the Aether Wave, but at the same time, like, I do believe that you should credit people for their work. Anyways, but I've let Habiborian go, so we'll let it go for tonight. I'll be true to my word, and I'll have let it go. And yeah, there we go. Okay, Matt and Solar, please go ahead. You know, yes, it sounds good, Matt.
Muted to me. That's why I didn't understand what happened. So I had to refresh. But anyways, I'm Matt Mora. Very glad to be here. Don't even remember the last time we went. I think it was like 2 weeks ago or something. So you can always find me as at MattMora19 on all socials. That's going to be YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, maybe some other place. And sorry for the voice, going through some body changes here. So it's adapting. My voice not the best today. But anyways, also very nice project. I've been talking about it on the rejects for a while, but I think it's the first time I'm going to talk about it here in the spaces, which is Gamu. It's a social platform. It's going to be a discourse layer on top of existing content, and it's going to be really, really cool the way you can organize stuff there and so on. I think we kind of miss a place to, speak about these things without getting deep platformed, or also what was happening in the timeline like this week with Hapaboria and whatever. Like people just tag along and then say shit and claim shit, but there's no way to really quote unquote prove or whatever. So I think that that's going to be a cool platform for that, and also to discourse on top of those things, like what they mean or what's your experience on them and so on. So if you're curious, you can just enter at entergamu.com. That's GAMU, entergamu.com. It's going to be really cool. I'm shooting for next week max to launch starting for it, and it's going to be invite only at the beginning just so we can curate stuff. But anyway, I think it's going to be really cool, and today as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And obviously, when you say you're going through bodily changes, that does sound like it is puberty, which we all know that you're a little too old for. So I just wanted to say that. That was probably probably like an ESL choice. But for the record, Matt, just make sure that you're careful around people when you say things like that, just because you don't know if they're creeps or not. I'm just saying. Anyways, all that being said, I'm sorry. Solar, please introduce yourself, anything you want to say, and then
how's the connection doing? Because I tried to unmute before and the whole thing just shit itself. Can you hear me now?
You sound good.
Okay, as good as it's gonna get, I think, for the night. Hey, Solar Exile, happy to be here. Yeah, we're an affirming space, so welcome, Matt. Happy for you. Yeah, so I'm just a humble zogger, but I've heard a thing or two about this Seth fella, so I thought I'd come to a meeting, read a pamphlet or two, and kind of see where it goes.
Okay, well, in full I think you know this, Solar, but like I don't fully agree with the Temple of Set's position that Set is the same as Seth. And to be
Oh,
honest,
I
he.
don't think we have that position at all, or they have that position at
Oh,
all.
you don't
Excuse me.
think? Okay, because
No,
I've
no,
been.
yeah. I actually, I mean, this might be getting too into the weeds too quickly, right? But I haven't actually encountered like Gnostian, sorry, Gnostian, like Gnostic Setianism, so much at all. Like I've never seen like any sort of like heritage or any signposting that kind of goes along with that. And I've never really encountered any like private, like individual adept interest in that in the settings that I've been fortunate enough to know so far. But you're also fairly familiar with the material, right? So like if that's not been your experience, but like again, I don't necessarily want to like derail it going into that, but as a sort of historical, like institutional thing, I'm kind of curious.
Look, I'll just say this to start. No, and I welcome that. The thing is like I am deep in a Michael Aquino, and he personally did have an interest. Now I don't know if like when he whatever happened, what when he his like role in the temple diminished, maybe that personal interest diminished. That's totally fine. He did commission a bunch of academics to try and prove that there was a kind of relationship between Set and Seth. Now, this does seem to be part of the older crowd. Materials like I saw a lot of like Don Webb writing about it, like under Dr. Sucknot and all that, and like there's a couple others, like some freighter, I don't remember his name, but I've been deep in the weeds on like the Setian sort of understanding of Set and Seth. And so there was a scholar, I can't remember if he was from Oxford or Harvard, but he was like the big guy in the Nag Hammadi. He was like one of the big scholars for Nag Hammadi, and Michael invited Dr. Aquino, invited him to give a lecture and like present his work because Dr. Aquino had been like, can you figure out if there's a relationship? And then the guy was like, well, I don't know if like this is like for me, but I'll like try anyway. So the idea is he came and he said, look, Dr. Aquino, this is not like there for me it's non-existent, but he's like, but there's definitely a relationship, which has always been my own perspective, because this is a much more tantric idea, is that the dragon and like the sun figure, like the adamantine sun, not necessarily the like Christ sun, but maybe the sort of like apotheosized version, there is a direct like relationship because the dragon is also within you in the channels and also in certain tantras. So from my perspective, there's always been a relationship, but I agree that they're not necessarily one to one. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm going to let Matt go, Solar, unless you want to like jump. I know that was like a ton. I kind of trauma dumped all my Setian readings. I apologize. Matt, please go. I'm sorry.
No worries. I just want to say I understand what I said might not be the best grammar, but it kind of does make sense because as I was speaking to Jim in the DMs earlier, I was working with the Clephos differently recently, and I feel like there was indeed a kind of rebirth going on, also with some ayahuasca retreat stuff I did since I'm in Brazil anyway. So here it's legal, by the way. But so it's very funny actually that you mentioned it like that because it does feel like that, even though it's biologically maybe not true. But it is very interesting. And I think it is kind of related to what we're going to talk about here today. So the will as the cause of fire. So very curious about that. Let's see.
Well, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. And I know I agree. And like Solar was even telling me, like there is a transformational aspect. And I've always said this: three body problem. I've never deviated. You can go back 2-3 years and listen to this. I've said it the whole time. You can transform anything with your mind. Now, to what degree? That's up to your cultivation. That's my position. That's always been my position, and that will continue to be my position because magic arises from your own mind as well as the aeons. So, in my opinion, yeah, Solar, please go ahead.
Yeah, you can cultivate well or you can cultivate poorly, right? Both under will, right? Yeah, no. So what? Just again, kind of like speculatively here. Um, so I think an important distinction, and this kind of to explain some like bits of like methodology here. I think a lot of this, if you're it depends on how you're working with like Set as a deity, right? And this actually goes for a lot of deities, right? Because if you were looking at it maybe from how I'm looking at it, you're saying, okay, can we use like this sort of like framework of a different mythos, right? In this case, like early, like, like first through third century, like Gnostic, Mediterranean context, to sort of like tell the type of story archetypically, mythologically that we want to tell, right? The answer to that is probably yes, right? And it doesn't matter if the actual like Sethian Gnostics had in mind anything to do with a sort of whatever you think is going on with the Egyptian deity of Set, right? If you're the type of person who's actually making use of Set as essentially your Yidam deity, right? Then all of a sudden it starts to matter. The like particular identity of the deity and the sort of like resonant energy and this and that actually starts to matter, right? So I kind of get to perhaps like some of it is just like a cultural like old head thing, right? With like Dr. A and Don Webb and stuff like that. But I think also part of it too is like you're talking about people who are like ipsissimi, right? Or even at least at the time, like, a magus or something like that. People who have like actively cultivated what we can more easily call in this case, like they've cultivated the sort of netter of Set, right? But really that's like accomplishing a certain level of deity yoga practice, right? Yidam practice, but with Set, right? As opposed to like a traditional Vedic or Buddhist deity, right?
There are
So
no Vedic, Solar, you know this. There are no Vedic
I love that I
deities
can
that
bait
you
you every
self
time,
cultivate. There
every
are
time.
no. Okay, well, there are none. Just let me say that for the public, at least. You can do what you
I'm
want, and
fucking
everyone
around.
can do what they
I'm fucking
want.
around.
Okay.
No, that's an important distinction. Sorry, yeah, no, we don't do any Vedic hanging with respect to tantra, right? We don't, zero tolerance policy here in the Great Lodge for that. But anyway, yeah. So it just kind of like it's the nature of the practices you're doing. I think it becomes more meaningful the deeper you get into that, right? That's why, perhaps. Okay.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted him. He did that on purpose, just so you guys know. He totally bugged me on purpose. Anyways, okay. Well, first of all, I totally agree. Solar, I think that there is like a use of the cosmology. I feel like you can locate the Gnostic and the Egyptian set in tantric cosmology, as I have always said. As I've always said, and I think that you can relate it to multiple different cosmologies of Central Asia, including esoteric Christianity. That's my position. And I think, like, okay, I'm not trying to reference DCS or David Haim Smith just because, but I'm just saying that he did release his new book, Crossed Arrows, which is exactly about this, which is about the inner convergence practices, which is about apotheosis, which is not inspired by like the Enochian sort of like outside of yourself style. So, like, going back to the idea of the Edom of Set, or not Set, Seth. I'm sorry, I've done that a couple times. The Edom of Seth. I personally think that there are brother and sister tantras. Like, we have discussed this before too, and there are ideas of the Vajra Kumara, the Diamond Thunder Sun, but he is a wrathful deity. That is what Vajrakumara is. So he is much more like this kind of like Setian anti-hero figure who topples the father. I can't really discuss it. Like, I can't discuss anything I practice like legit. Like, I'm really trying hard to not be like the mouthpiece anymore. And not because I ever think I overwent too far, but sometimes maybe I think it didn't help me. And so now I'm just trying to be a little more cautious. But I do think that there is a Vajra Kumara figure that is equivalent to Seth. And I think that if you practice those Edams, which are multiple, but at the same time, and maybe we'll get into this, an idea of multiplicity coming from the unity, coming from the Barbello, which are in the Setian stele. For the record, I did watch Dr. Justin Sledge's Esoterica video on the Gnostic Stele and also the whatever thing of John. So whatever video he did on Gnostic stuff, I watched a couple of them today. So just in preparation, because sometimes it's useful. Okay, I'm sorry. Solar, please go ahead.
Can you guys hear
Solar?
me?
Yep. Okay, now it's
All right.
good.
All right. Well, so I think you have a fairly flexible, like, I don't know, tantric attribution for Set from a temple of Set perspective, just because I mean, at the most schematic level, Set as a deity is just taken as the sort of like archetypical, like discrete mind, discrete consciousness, or like a field of awareness, right? That's like what Set is. The gift of Set is simply like you could almost say like pointing out, right? So it's for to another being who has the capacity or has their own sort of like distinct, discrete mind or mind stream to recognize and start to come into the awareness of that, right? Now, whether you want to say that that equates to something like Vajrasattva or just simply like guru yoga generically or whatever, but like there's a lot you could do with that. I'd actually be really curious though to hear your sort of like tantric cross attribution. Again, we're playing fast and loose. We're doing this speculatively for Gnostic Seth, because I know very little about that. And since that was on the marquee for tonight, I know maybe other people would want to hear more about that than Temple of Set bullshit. Maybe.
Okay, well, I agree with you. I totally agree. Like that is exactly what you're talking about, like coming into the awareness of like that potentiality of mind. But there is an interesting thing that I did realize between Zog and like also the non-dual tantras. So this is really an important distinction. I probably should have made this years ago. Not all tantras are non-dual. They're supposed to be taken in a non-dual way, but they're not always taught in a non-dual way. So there are actually 3 categories of non-dual tantras that are at the higher the higher excelled yoga tantra level. So Adi Yoga is one, Adi Yoga is another with a D, and Kalachakra, and including alternative Kalachakra. So those are all non-dual yogas. So they're equivalent to each other in some ways. But there are divergences even from like texts like, oh, also Havajra is taught as a non-dual yoga. I just wanted to say this because this is really interesting since I have a Sakyava background. Is that Havajra is taught as a non-dual yoga, but it's not taught as a non-dual yoga in any other school. So I think this actually was a fetter, but also a boon for me, because I was able to approach all tantras as non-dual, but it wasn't conscious. Anyways, this is getting too far off field, but I just want to say that there is a kind of recognition that it is okay to speak in dualism if we are referring to the non-dual layer. And that is something I've actually had to work on getting more comfortable with, like through the spaces and through the show, is speaking more dualistically and not being so, to use my own word, aspersive against like people's deity form or thought form or egregore or whatever the fuck they want, or planets or whatever the fuck they want to worship. That is totally fine. Like I don't think it's fine. Like I'm not personally going to do that, but I also recognize that perhaps it is not always useful to be like, yo, you are worshiping a klipa, like you need, or an aggregate or a skanda, which are all the same thing. You need to disaggregate yourself, and then maybe the klipa will clarify. That is one idea. Or you break it, that's another idea, right? Because both of those things are true. Like David and I spoke about this for a long time on Wednesday. Is like he has the idea that klipas can be made, I was telling Matt this too, can be made either translucent or clarified entirely, and then you can see the rainbow body through it. That's one idea. I'm just saying that's one idea. He has a more Dzogchen background than I do. So I know I totally went off base from Solar's question, but I was trying to fill in some blanks I was thinking about, like all the things that we talk about. Okay. Matt and then Solar. Sorry about that.
So that's exactly, what we're talking about. I'll share here, not in details, practical way, something like that. So I was going through this emotional thought form thing that I had created. So basically, I created a symbol, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And that symbol running still in my mind, and it was powerful enough to give me even like body sensations. So it was a symbol that powerful. Anytime it came up in whatever way, it would affect me, right? Very powerfully. And well, I've been studying Kabbalah for a long time now, and in my head, it was best if I always used the tree of life, right? If I always try to use the arcana or whatever based on the tree of life. Sure, I tried and tried and tried. The symbol was still there, and it was still super powerful. But coincidentally, I learned, or I understood, that I could also use the idea of the Qlifos. In this case, was the Draconic Kabbalah that I had a class. in any situation. So in this case, what did I do? I emptied the symbol. I created a cliff, a husk out of that symbol. The moment that I decided to do that, it didn't affect me anymore. So it's not about like, for example, you can do this at least in the Kabbalah that I was initiated. You can try to like rewrite a story or to like kill whatever is not working for you anymore, or like destroy it, whatever. That's something. Emptying it is another thing, because you're literally removing its energy. You're not like changing the energy. You're literally removing it from existence. And again, like I said, it was instant. So it was just like understanding that, and the thing just made itself, like Jin was saying, translucent, right? It had literally no more power. So just saying, it is really powerful. But that being said, it's better if you can understand how to create things first, because otherwise you're gonna empty too much and you're not gonna know how to create anything anymore. And now you're left in this kind of void, right? Which is again also not necessarily great, at least from my perspective.
Thanks, Matt. I always appreciate your practical Kabbalah. As both of us, Solar and I, I'm just going to speak for him for 1 second, is that we both noted this week that you did a great chart on very practical sort of Kabbalistic working for tech, like fintech. So good job on that. And I think that that is one of the strengths that you bring to the Lodge, is that you are very practical and pragmatic. And I know that I often am the most speculative, and sometimes I'm sure that annoys people, but like I think it's important for me to speak speculatively, simply because people do take what I say very literally. Like, that has been my experience, and that is not my intention. Like, I'm not trying to be your guru or your teacher or anything. If anything, I want to probably be your friend, likely, especially if you're in the GC. And if we are friends already, like, that's pretty much it for me. Like, I'm just trying to do a cool easing. So I have to stay at the speculative level. I know that that is not, it's not the, it's gonna, but it also makes us different, right? And people do notice that we have like strengths, and like we're like 10, 20 years ahead, at least in our thinking. Now obviously we've kind of set the Aeon free now, and so people are like, the thing with Hyperborea is like, I don't really care if they stole Hyperborea. I wish they would have used Aeon of the Daughter, but it's too complex an idea for low IQ like midget kings, is the truth. So they didn't take the good one. They didn't take the actually meaningful one. They took like the easy word, is really what happened. So why I'm saying that is because that's like another instance of like me saying something and people just taking it so literally. Like, this is what he means. Like, this is what, like, the way I should live my life. But I don't tell people how to live their life, nor do I want to. Okay, I'm done with that. Sorry, Solar, please go ahead. I apologize for that. I just wanted to point it out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And thank you, Matt, for sharing that too, right? Like, we were talking about some of those ideas, some of the unique potentials, or potentials that are sort of unique within the frame of Kabbalah to like Qliphotic work, like when we were talking about the tunnels of Set, Nightside stuff, the Kenneth Grant like couple of weeks that we did that stuff, right? We were trying to answer this question of, why would you go to Qliphotic work anyway, right? Like, why not just stay on the light side of the tree, right? It doesn't have these quote unquote risks or any of this stuff, right? And like some of the things that we kept coming back to was, or at least I drum, right? Is that you have sort of a unique potential in the negative space, right, of the Qliphos for something that is like unambiguously, directly like adversarial, right? Like, you can have a sort of direct conflict. You can sort of empty things of meaning because there's sort of like nothing good down there in a way that you sometimes lack the clarity when you're working through the traditional spheres, right? But anyway, those are big fancy words, and I always love hearing, even just like Matt's description was like half practical, but still like half schematic, right? Without getting down to the details. I think that stuff's really helpful just to kind of like put out there as an example of how you can use it. It's also similar to like if you're doing like 100-syllable mantra purification practices, right? To incorporate the like visualization. So it's not just like the nectar that's dripping down into you, purifying you to your sort of crystalline light body, but then like allowing also, like, while you're holding that visualization and in the mantra, to practice a confession, right? And basically visualize that as like these black aggregate, either like like goo slime or black smoke, whatever, going down and literally being fed into the mouth of the god of death, right? And you're sort of like nourishing that god in a way, allowing it to sort of like consume those transgressions of Samaya, et cetera, right? Again, it's sort of like similar in some aspects of visualization and stuff like that. But again, that's open practice, no problem to talk about it. Yeah, so that's very cool. I love some of the similarity there. What I had originally I wasn't trying to be what I originally raised my hand, kind of coming back to the dual versus non-dual tantra. So again, because I'm a Dzogchen guy, I just skipped right to Adi Yoga. So I do really get on practices regularly. I'm not familiar with dualistic tantra, so can you maybe explain? Because I know a lot.
Solar, we lost your mic again. It's not your fault. It's literally the app is so bad. But I got you. Okay, we'll bring him back up. Don't worry, guys. We're in a really crazy astro period. Like, I did not pick like an easy day to do this, but I actually was like, I'm gonna pray really good beforehand and make sure that it's like all, like it's like the Vajrasattva, like Solar was talking about. Although he did tell me once that he was not supposed to do preliminaries, so I don't know. I've heard different, accountings of that. But anyways, I'll let it go.
Solar be inconsistent. Yeah, my Lama tells me not to do prelims, so I am currently in 4 different preliminary practice like classes, 1 Bon and then like 3 in normative Vajrayana. Yeah, can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, it came back. I apologize. I
Yeah,
was
God,
trying to fill
yeah,
the
6
space.
tonight. Yeah. Anyway, I just again, we can talk very schematically, however you want to handle the question. So, in a very basic sense, like you're reading Introduction to Tantra book by Lama Yeshe or something like that, right? You go from generation to completion stage. You become sort of like non-distinct, non-separate from the deity.
Okay,
You in most.
wait. We can only talk about frontal generation. We cannot
Okay.
talk about completion or perfection.
Okay, never mind. Because my question was going to be basically like, I have only ever received initiation in practices where like they end non-dually, I guess. Like it wouldn't be possible. I just don't, I can't even like comprehend what that would look like without sort of collapsing that distinction. That's the entire point. Anyway, but yeah, if we're not getting into that, that's totally fine.
No, we're going to get into it. I'll explain it. I just want to just be clear that I cannot teach anyone either of those two things, okay? But we can talk about it in a broad, like the broad contour of it. That's totally fine. And you'll always have great questions, and I'm not trying to even be argumentative. You know that I come from a place of like bodhicitta, or I'm trying to. So,
And hey, if we want to keep it like, if for our example, we can use like an Aryatara sadhana,
well, that's
right? Where
exactly, yeah.
that's completely open, it's on the internet, like every stage of
Totally.
that is, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're Samaya minded in this group chat, or in our spaces. Okay, Aryatara. Honestly, you were reading my mind because that was exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking like green Tara. Of course, you collapse the Dakini into what I'm calling our Dakini Shia Tara. Green Tara. We'll say green Tara because that's the one I actually don't do that one very often. To be honest, I'm gonna be honest. Like I'll say like, oh, I'm gonna pray Tara for you. I pray a Tara for people. I just don't necessarily pray that one, but I definitely do a Tara practice. Okay. So I understand the fundamental idea, and of course, 21 Tara, it is an open practice. It's available on the internet, and I also encourage all of you, if you do want a deity practice, that is a great one. And Tara is a great deity, and you can pick any. You don't have to pick green or white. You could pick any of the 21, no problem, for real. And I think it's actually important because it actually imbues you with the armor, the kavacham of the deity itself. And so there are different strengths of deities, but it also depends on like your consistency and rigorousness and ability to, yes, shape rotate. So, but don't worry about that. If you don't have one, like I'm not telling anyone what to do or what to believe or you have to follow Dharma. I've always been very clear about this. Like you don't have to follow Dharma. I would love it. I mean, it's great if you do. Obviously, it's great. I think Dharma is great. I think non-duality, bodhicitta, middle pillar. That's how I've often tried to lead the spaces as much as I can. It's imperfect. It's always has been. But I do think that that's a great way to live your life, and I think that that's a very aeonic way to live your life. So that's just my opinion. Do as I will. But okay. So Aryatar. So of course, yes, you collapse the green. If you're doing green, you collapse her back into the emptiness. So I understand that you're saying, like, yes, it ends in a non-dual layer, but at first you're visualizing her out in front of you. So if you want to even think of it as like a meditation, like that is from I think it's from a Kriya Tantra. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So you walk through the threshold. I'm not doing a pun, but kind of. You walk through the threshold. You come across the Matrika Grove, which is made of 7 rocks, like kind of like laying as like I guess it's like benches is kind of what it is. And there's like an altar and stuff. And so you have the 7 Matrikas, the 7 sky mothers coming down. But instead of them coming down as 7, they actually come down as Tara, and they come down as like the essence, I guess, of bodhicitta. I guess it's like complete, like it's just wisdom free in space, but the perfection of wisdom free in space. And she is like a mother. So you can imagine it like that. And the light is like, it just, I always say this, I'm sorry, Solar. It looks exactly like Solar's PFP. It's like that color. It's blue green. And it's like, the color is like, it's almost like clarity, like how water, we always use this example. It's really like water. It's really Hasidic. But it appears blue green because it can appear also like the sky, and it can also appear like the ocean. When the ocean has multiple colors, as you can go even in a river, you can go. It's more like an ocean, but you know what I mean. It can look turquoise, it can look green, it can look blue, it can look black. But all those things are just clear. There is no actual fixed color to it. So that is kind of what it is. But she does appear blue green, and why is this important? Is that's a great pacification color. It's also the color of synthesis, and it is also a Hasidic color. It is that color of bodhicitta, of like loving kindness, like at its core. So yes, and then when you're finished, you let herself combust, depending on how you're visualizing it, and then you bring it back in. So when I'm saying bring it back in, you're visualizing it coming back into your navel. I'm so uncomfortable talking about this. And then you let your body sort of fill up with that color, that blue-green color. And so the idea is the swiftness of all remedies. She's the remedy, the swiftness of all remedies, or whatever. It's swift action. She's part of the karma family. That's one way you can explain it. That's not how she is at all levels. There are different ways to even explain different deities. So that's really important to keep in mind. If you're going to do a Tara, stick to your text. Don't just like do one internet thing here. I'm not saying anything about anyone. I'm just saying from my perspective, this is the problem. This is like, I'm a little more conservative in this way. Is that it's just, I think it's good to just stick to the one way. That doesn't mean to not have flexibility. It just means that the hermeneutic will teach you like what to do. Like I'm saying Tara, but like this will teach you how to do all deity yoga to a degree. And when I say to a degree, I mean to a degree, because all like deity yoga is very specific and very different at different levels. So it will get more complex, but the 21 Tara practice is so good for the outer practitioner. Like it's such a, I cannot like say how important I think a Tara practice is in 2026. Okay, Solar, please go ahead.
So just like again, kind of schematically, a few sort of key things that are happening as that practice moves on, right? So the practitioner, you sort of you bring that color and sort of that energy, as well as the like the sort of feeling and the anyway, you bring that into yourself. You sort of become that deity. At the same time, you are now sort of seeing your surroundings. The world becomes the, whether you want to say the sort of like the pure land or the mandala of the deity, right? So the your like immediate environs and therefore like the entire world in perception becomes as it's perceived by that deity, right? And then towards the end of the practice, at least like in Aryatara, which is literally like the one that I'm familiar with that we're the only Tara that I know to talk about. Eventually, you're going to combust the entire visualization, into pristine emptiness, blah blah blah, as the syllables disappear, all of that, right? So anyway, like my point is there's this profound increasing unity with the deity, right? Just at a very general level. Um, I'm curious, and again, I'm so ignorant. I just assumed that basically all deity yoga kind of went that direction very generally, right? So for dualistic tantric practices, you don't have that kind of like union. You're not seeking that. You're sort of dealing with the deity sort of just staying out there. It's out there, I'm here, and engaging like subject object with it. That's so fascinating. Like throughout the practice, like you don't ever sort of bring it inside you, transform your perception to be that of the deity, etc. Is that roughly it, or no? That's why I was asking, because it's so different.
I totally get this. Okay, so number one, we are never the deity. You might understand yourself to be at a point in sadhana to be the deity at like when we're talking about like higher yoga. But you are not the deity because we're not eternalists. Right? Like you are the deity. You have the potential inside of you. That is what the whole point is. Like, you want the whole point? The whole point is to recognize that the pristine emptiness and awareness and bodhicitta and infinite potential is actually inside of you. But it is not you. It is like the you that is free of aggregates and also free of yourself. So that's what Buddhism would say. But yes, as Solar is saying, there is like, okay, so the outer temple, you want to talk about like outer temple religion? Yes. Like when you see Asian people, like, okay, we'll talk about like everybody's talking about Hapaborean and being Chinese and like all this shit on the timeline that we were talking about 2 years ago. It's now cool again. It's not interesting. Well, anyways, the point is, it's like when you see people go the Mahayana layer is that layer. When they see the Bodhisattva, when they see Guan Yin, they're understanding that to be like a cosmological or even ontological, at like if you're really smart, one layer, but there as almost, yes, there's an object, whatever. It's like there's a perspectival difference. Like you are not the same as the deity. There's like a duality. That is how most people, I've come to understand, that is how most people see the world. No matter how much I rant or yell at pagans on YouTube or whatever, it doesn't matter, because people are still going to see they're going to see the klipa they're going to see the appearance existence as real, as existing, as arising independently. That's nothing to do with yourself. And like, what are you talking about, Jin? Like ghosts arising from your own mind, like the carnal ground arising from your own mind. Like people don't want to fucking hear it. They think it's weird, and they think that I'm full of shit or something like that. I have no kind of like magical or psychic experience, but I do. But I also know to let those things go, and that's also part of like doing like Tantra and non-dual Kabbalah. So to go back to like Solar's point is like, yes, if you are a smart person, you will understand that Tara is not Tara. She is not even a star. She is actually her bija, which is in for Arya Tara, for the outer green Tara. So this is the exoteric, not the Tara that I post. Exoteric green Tara. It is Tam. That is the bija in Sanskrit. The bijas have fundamental sort of under layers of meaning within them, up to 9 layers. Colors, flashing colors, textures, conceptual ideas, everything that we talked about for the Aeonic words, like for free, and like there actually are more bijas for the Aeon. I can't really give it, but that's for me to know, I guess, and for y'all to find out, maybe. But I just feel like I gave the main one, which is obviously the one about fire and flowers. So that is exactly what it means, and it's also the bija of self-respect. So I'm just using that as an example. So they all carry like inherent meanings. And so, but that's also, we also let that go. But then we also know that like even the bija itself, one bija itself can recreate the entire mandala of a deity. That's why I sort of stopped being so Like, I never was super trad. Like, I don't ever think my account was super trad. I'm a very conservative person, and I'm cautious in how I live my life most of the time. But I would say I've always been quite flexible in that, in like when people would say, "Oh, American Dharma, it's too new, or didn't take root, or didn't do this, or it's not like, not everyone's flying around as wizards on the mountains or whatever." Yet the point is that it doesn't matter, because Buddhism is always reconstitutable. And anyone who says they practice Tantra, I'm not talking about anyone in this room, I'm really not. I'm talking about like all the Dharma people I've ever encountered on Twitter. If you say you practice Tantra and you don't fundamentally understand that the Dharanis are everything, that is the essence of even the highest Yoga Tantra, then you're fooling yourself with your practice. The Pranaparamita Sutras contain all the original, like, codification, magic numbers, seeds, ways to think about things. It's just hidden in the twilight layers. I'm not saying that I can extract it. I can extract it. I'm glad that people wrote tantras and all the compendiums. I'm glad that we have all this like amazing wisdom science to practice and study, and Kabbalah as well, and all the wisdom sciences. It's important. It's like, but then at the same time, it's like, it's all bullshit at the same time. So that's kind of what a bija is. It's kind of primordial, and it's kind of bullshit. It's dualistic. Most people have a dualistic perception, and that's okay, because the reality is that it is about unity. It is about yab yam. So that's another way Tara is also conceived, like, to throw a paradox into Solar's question, is like, yeah, you do seek unity with the deity. Sometimes that's understood in different ways. Sometimes it's you as the deity. Sometimes it's the deity as your sky wife. So, I don't know. I hope that answers something. Anyways, I'm sorry. I saw Monty and Joshua come up, so I will obviously invite them both up. And we haven't heard from Monty in a while, so I'm really glad to see he's here. And of course, Joshua, the branch, our fourth pillar. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, yeah, first off, hey everybody, it's a pleasure to see you all again. I hope everyone's been well. Um, there was a lot there, and I had one real question, but a couple of stray observations. It really is like so disgusting, and how people are trying to like steal valor for Hapaborea. Like, we've all been here for like 2 years now, and it's it is really quite laughable at how like the ankle biters come out of the woodwork the second something like, oh, Japan did something base, now suddenly it's this rigmarole. But besides the point. I kind of wanted to ask a little bit more about. You said before that the that like you don't have these like spirits within you. You don't have like within you is not a shred or an element of like the bodhicitta and like the worship of thinking that you do have it within you is like a worship of a klipa. And so I just kind of want to get like a little more like shed a little more light on that, because I don't know, I at least from a Christian perspective, I do believe that we have like the spark of the divine within us. And I don't know if this is like a meditation on archetypes, or I don't know. I'm gonna if you could please answer that for me, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Monty. That's a great question. Okay. So basically, I believe that we have it. Dharma believes that we have it. It is always there. Bodhicitta is always there. The spark is always there, but it's in darkness. Just like the bija, the word. Same thing. Logos. People will argue and fight with me and say, oh, it's not quite the same as what like these like ancient Greek guys said. Well, I think it's similar. And a lot of other people think it's similar too. So I'm not like out on a limb here saying that. It's just the reality. So I think that I think it is self-emergent, but I don't think we are that thing. Like, I don't think that we are that essence of that thing. Even when we're there, I don't think we are that thing. I think the thing is luminous and massless, and held together in bodhicitta, in love. So I do not think that, I'm not an eternalist, but everyone else can think what they want, and that is completely fine. But different people have different ideas. Like there's a bunch of different Gnostics who had different ideas. The Setians, they have different ideas of the soul complexes. We do too. Like some of the non-dual tantras have very different idea of the soul complex than some of the. And when I said there are dualistic, I didn't mean that there are actual dualistic tantras. They're all supposed to be appraised in a non-dual way, but people's level of understanding of what that means tends to differ. Just like those tantras that I reference as being quote unquote slightly dualistic in their sort of categorization, their epistemology, is not that they're dualistic necessarily, but they're for practices that occur after death, in the spiritual carnal ground, in the bardo. Those are bardo tantras. Chakra Samvara is a bardo tantra. Like, yes, we are on the carnal ground. I believe that. But that is for when you die and leave the body and you go into the bardo, however many days you want to say, if it's 49 days conceptually, or 7 years, or it's like Bleach, and you go and live in some city near the, like a mandala. That's how it's also conceptualized. So I'm just saying that there are tantras for life and there are tantras for death, and like, how do you quite reconcile and understand that? So that's what I wanted to say. That so it was just about dualism. I'm not saying anything is necessarily dualistic. You should read even Kriya Tantra as non-dual. That's my perspective. I think that is the right way. Non-dual, non-extreme, middle path. That's to me what it is really about. Yes, things can be real and not real at the same time. That's okay. We get to choose what we believe too. So I don't know. Anyway, Solar, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, I was just going to point out, I mean, again, this isn't really news to anyone, right? But I think we run into problems when we're trying to talk about things that are sort of like definitionally ineffable, right? Like if you start talking about, if you start trying to make any affirmative statements about the nature of mind, which you kind of have to do to like communicate at all, like about like, for Buddhism or whatever. Well, then you say, oh, well, is that our essence, right? Like, is our essence emptiness? It's like, well, I mean, like you start to sort of like create logical problems um that aren't really there and that definitely like disappear in practice. And that's why for me, like, I'm always saying like these things are really best understood like experientially, and then sort of like using theoretical frameworks to sort of like guide, like they complement each other, right? But like experientially things tend to be a little bit more clear than theory first. But that said, I do think there's like one of the reasons why I'm more sympathetic than a lot of people towards like Advaitis, and I would put Christians in a similar position, right? Is so yes, they are eternalists, but at the same time, the sort of like the spark of the divine that is within man. Now I'm talking more from using Christian language, but you'll see the Advaita kind of connection too. It's like the spark of the divine that's within man is sort of beyond all reckoning. It's beyond all description. So yes, we're assigning like a sort of like positive value to it in a way that's going to make sort of Buddhists uncomfortable, but at the same time we're not really saying anything more about it because it's something that we share the nature of God. It's something that we just can't talk about, right? Which is ultimately like what we're going to want to do when we're quote unquote avoiding the extremes, right? And back to a Buddhist context, when we're saying like, oh, it's beyond singularity and plurality, for example, right? Now, again, I don't know. I'm not saying these things are the same. Obviously, they're different, but in a way, I feel like we're very, very much in the same territory. And I don't know. I'm just the theoretical distinctions between those things. I'm less interested in like what Advaita Vedanta wants to do specifically by drawing conclusions about us all being kind of like fragments of this one divine mind, right? Like I am much less interested in that as an ontological project. That also seems just experientially not to be how things are, right? Like I can rest in awareness and still have a sort of like my mind in that, like what arises spontaneously in the play of like luminous emptiness in that space is still distinct from what is arising in the like luminous empty space of another mind, right? We're not, to me, like I have no reason to believe the Advaita conclusion of that, right? But at the same time, when I hear Christians talk about like the spark of the divine being within man and stuff like that, but again, since it's so ineffable and beyond all description, I'm like, I kind of see what you're doing, like I fuck with that a little bit. I don't know. I'm sympathetic, but
Okay, so that was great. Thank you, Solar. I'm also very led by my experiential knowledge, I will say, which is, of course, the meeting of wisdom and method, which is what Tantra is. So, that being said, I'm very, and this is not a criticism of Solar at all. So nobody should read it as that. I really hate Advaita. I really don't like it. It makes me, it's more than a discomfort. I don't like how it gets interpreted in the West. I don't love the guru worship, like living people worship. People will say, oh, Jin's a Westoid, but am I? I got threatened to be deported, called ICE on something, whatever. The point is, it's to me, that is not Aeonic. I'm not talking about disrespect of elders or like the traditions or institutions or ideas at all. I'm not talking about like transgressivity. Like be very clear about it. And I think I have been. But there is something when lamas come here to the new world, and I'm not the only one who's observed or noticed it. I'm just have balls enough to say it. Is that there is a kind of mixing of Advaita, this kind of more very Indian ideas of what a guru should be treated as. And that might be true in Tibetan context. And of course, we all respect, like as I was tweeting about a few days ago, like the Dakun, who's a very important figure in like the Indonesian sort of like magical religious sort of like, we'll call it a cosmology. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know where I was really going with that. Anyways, so yes, Solar, please go ahead.
yeah. So I have a question because again, I know very little about like Sethian Gnosticism, and I'd love to sort of learn a little bit more, maybe particularly in the context of where the discussion has gone up to this point, right? So is there any way, do you think, to sort of like bring Sethian Gnosticism into a non-dual framework? Right? Because again, from my very, very limited understanding of it, it is sort of quintessentially dualistic. It does posit this material world as being like sort of self-existing, or sort of not necessarily self-arising, but distinct from perception. It's out there, right? And then it kind of gives it this sort of like it's like somewhere between like an ontological and a sort of like moral characterization, right? As sort of evil or as being, it wants to get out, right? It wants to break free. And I definitely understand the appeal of that, but to me, that's like completely irreconcilable with the sort of attitude ultimately that we have as like Vajrayana practitioners or anything like that. And I'm wondering if you think there's a way to sort of like allow these systems to be able to talk to each other, or if this is too characteristic of like Sethian Gnosticism, you just have to take it as it is, kind of take it or leave it. Like, what do you do with it? I'm wondering, like, what is, what is Gnostic with a K, Seth, for you, as a Vajra bro?
Okay, well, this is a little easier actually to answer. So as I said, I think it's Vajra Kumara, who's also known as Vajrasattva, who's also sometimes the Vajra Guru. Sometimes that can be Padmasambhava. That's what I was trying to tell you. There are different sadhanas that will use that name. That's like a twilight name. It's like an outer name that references a secret thing. This is what Tantra is. So you kind of put together the story, like pattern recognition. This is what makes me a great internet schizo, is that sort of like thing. And this is like another difference between Zog and like the other yogas. Like we do believe in the 5 and the 6. Like you are at Yesod, that is probably where like Rigpa quote unquote exists, like in that 5th prime consciousness, Akasha. But you actually rise up to the 6th, and this is a really important idea. So you kind of take the self-emerging word, like the star, you could say, the inner star. But you could also imagine as an outer star. Why not? Like, this is the thing. I have to be flexible because people are more normie. I think people are super psychic now, and this is my kind of theory of the Aeon, is that people have become a lot more psychic. I feel like I've always been really psychic, but I kind of try not to emphasize that point, because then it sounds like I'm like imposing my will on people, which is like totally against my ethos. It's totally against like my character, and it is actually, like, I would say it's anti-Aeonic. So okay, so I'm gonna get back to my point. So, but it kind of all coincides, sort of. Non-dual set. How do I reconcile it? Well, I think the sun is, as I've always said, I think he is meant to rectify the tree, and I think that we do that through the Aeon of the Daughter, and that's how I would understand it. So as a Vajra bro, I think he is the Vajra Kumara practices. Now, what are the Vajra Kumara practices? Well, I listed 3 of them. I'm just saying, I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm just giving an idea. Vajrasattva is the one who originally gave Tantra to man. That is the story. That is literally the original story. I think this is even true in Dzogchen. It's definitely true in Indian Tantra, and it's definitely true in all of the higher Tantras. Vajrasattva is the guy. I know, Solar sent me this quote about Nan. I'm not contradicting it. Namkai Norbu might have his own understanding, but he was like, oh, Kalachakra is given, or the story as it is told is like the Buddha Shakyamuni giving a teaching and someone hears it, but that's not actually how the Kalachakra starts. And so, but that is also goes along with like oral instruction methods. Like, I could see that story being related as the origin of Kalachakra because it makes sense in a non-dual way, because it doesn't really matter what Buddha gives the text. It doesn't really matter how the text originates. That's a very non-dual way to understand it, right? So that is also like what Vajrasattva is. He is crystalline, pristine, crystal clear, but as you were saying, he can be imagined in other configurations that are dependent on Buddhist color magic from the mandala. There are some tantras that imagine emanations of Vajrasattva, meaning Vajrasattva is sort of he is the one that coalesces all the cosmic Buddhas. So all the cosmic Buddhas of the 4 colors or 5 colors, excuse me, collapse into him. He's unique in that he remains pristine. His whole thing is that he is white, or it's really clear, like ice or diamond thunder. And so that's his whole conceptual idea, is that no matter what, there's no darkness you can put before him. The light will always kind of emerge. So yeah, that's a great practice. I'm not saying for everyone to do that. Like, we have a Vajra bro that we're good friends with, Solar, like Anu. He does trauma nagmo. Everybody has a different, there are different things for different people, and lamas will give different practices for different people, and there are different preliminaries. Like, Tantra is a very diverse, it's extremely diverse. And also, like, the thing is, and like, nobody brought this up, but I'm just probably bringing it up for my own ego or whatever, is that I still am very fascinated by this idea of Southeast Asian Tantra, like Buddhist Tantra. Because the Hindu Tantra is like easy to find. It's like right there. Like, that is the layer. It's just the Avacharya, black magic. Like, what can we get in this material life layer? But like, I guess I'm more interested in the theurgical layer. I guess that kind of responds also to the part of the question. It's like, how do we reconcile this Setian figure? Well, I think the whole thing is about adamantization, whatever, becoming adamantite. And I think that the text is also about that. So, of course, I think it's better to read it in a non-dual way, meaning that it's not, like, when he's talking about, like, he's talking a lot about certain kinds of like brotherhoods and invisible colleges and like this like secret sort of like Barbello cult and like all this shit, and like the reality is like, yeah, that might exist, but also we don't have to take it like as we have to literally reproduce it. Maybe it's just a conceptual kind of thing that we work through in our minds. That would probably be more of an enigma view. to be honest. Like, to hear about the Barbello Queen and then to be like, okay, what ways can we understand her? How can we work through sort of the conceptual problems that arise with her, the Mamos, the chaos, meaning both the externalities, because that's what Mamos is. It is like plagues, it is disasters, it is like the, any kind of parapolitical event. It is all of those things is outside of us. That is Mamos. And it's also inside of us. So it's both. It's also like the insecurities. Like, I struggle with this a lot. Not feeling smart enough or even quote unquote special enough. It's not, and I'm not saying like it's about being special to like do a podcast. It's not, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, is my voice like important? Like, doesn't it even matter? That's where I struggle. I'm just being really honest. Because I think that this is also like a good example of like Mamos. Like, those are little Mamos things. It doesn't mean that I should have total self belief in who quote unquote Jin is. And maybe I should. And maybe I should. But I also try and temper that and be like self reflexive, which is also like goes to what Monty was saying about like the guru or the spark within. Like, it's really important to have a dialectical relationship with that, a self-reflexive relationship with that, where you're not stagnant and you're not stuck on particular sort of like, I think it always should be this. Like, I think it's important to be like a little more, to use tantric bro language or tantra bro language, to be stainless and pristine. Now that definitionally changes depending on the text that you practice. But like, it's a hermeneutic, and it's like Jacob's ladder, and you're constantly climbing, and sometimes you fall down and sometimes you climb back up. Walking through the klipas, I mean, that's the best we can do. That's what I've really understood in the last 3 years. Is that we're all just like trying our best. Well, if we're doing it, I mean, it's our choice, right? That's the other thing. It's clearly a choice, and we have to keep walking through it, and we can't go backwards. And I think that also reconciles some of the duality, is we recognize like, yeah, reality is like kind of fucked up. It's kind of weird. We are on the carnal ground. We are in the tunnels. Maybe we're emerging. I like that more, a lot more, is that we're emergent from the tunnels through the power of the Princess of Breaking Klipas, as I've called it in the past. And we are emergent, and we are like the bride in the conceptual way that we are seeing the world for the first time, just like the walking the path from Malkuth to Yesod. And then we have to reconcile the whole tree, both within ourselves and within the world. And I think that is like how we should position. If we're going to say anything is dualistic, yeah, it's both the mind and the world. I think that's okay dualism, because then you recognize that both of those things are kind of interrelated, and maybe that complexity is actually more interesting and more skillful way to explain the polarities as they are. Okay, Solar, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple things. On that, like, I don't know, that sort of like intuition, right? Or that like inner voice. So I'm fairly convinced that like that's really where it's at, and there's a lot more going on than we give credit for, right? So I think that there's sort of an inherent naturalness that we all have. And I think that we like have this sort of like social construct of thinking of instinct as being this kind of baseline animal layer, like that when we talk about sort of that instinct or that intuition, that we're pointing to the human equivalent of like what animals run on most of the time seemingly. And I don't think that's it at all. I think actually there's a profound wisdom and intelligence and like compassion there that is I think also it operates infinitely faster than our discursive rational mind. But we bury this sort of intuitive mind under layers of theory, of discourse, of sort of like predicative thought, as well as like klephos, basically, as well as our clinging, our desires, and stuff like that. And so we have all these different ways to sort of depreciate and snuff out that like sort of like inner, I don't even want to say inner voice, because it's really like a mind. Like that is like the natural mind. Um, and so for me, like allowing that to just be able to like do its thing is like sort of the fundamental goal of my practice, frankly. And if I wanted to get a little bit speculative, I would say that I think that also exists outside of time, which is one of the reasons why it runs so much faster than any like that voice or that like sense just knows exactly what to do seemingly before I'm even cognizant of like what it's responding to. It has already told me, or like it's not even, it's not separate from me. I mean, that literally is me, right? And fun fact, if you are deep enough into like awareness practices and you like knock yourself out, like I accidentally knocked myself unconscious for a very, very short period of time at work a few weeks ago. You still have that actually. So not only do you have awareness in general, but you actually have that like sentience, and you're aware of that, right? Because it's always aware of itself in the sort of like space of mind. I'm not saying you should try to do this, but you'll just notice it shit happens, right? You get smacked on the head every now and then, one way or another. So yeah, just like a fun little thing to notice. You can get like a really, really clear sense of what that's like, independent of all like sensory like inputs and stuff like that. But I wanted to say, kind of taking what I just said back to your question of like, why am I doing this? And how to sort of engage in a pursuit, like, is it worth it? I think like if you have that, again, if you've cut through like the sort of like ego construction, you've cut through desire, and you have this sense, like truthfully, honestly, in clear wisdom that you should do something, that you're supposed to be doing something. For instance, like, putting out the kind of content, right? This is meaningful. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Then that becomes an end of itself, and that's where we say without lust for result, right? Like it becomes worth doing on its own, and you can detach that from worrying about how things are received, if it's going to be, whatever. Like none of that stuff matters, because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is clear away the obstructions, clear away the obstacles, and allow that self, whatever we want to call that voice, that intuitive just knowing, to just act through us naturally, like reflexively, right? Like without anything standing. Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm going with things these days.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. That is where my practice is too. Like in terms of like my goal is to try and get there every day, see how long I can rest there. Of course, I do it in a different way. Of course, I have a little bit of different understanding of the process. I have a different understanding of like what to do when I get there. That's just experiential. That's just like a system difference. That's okay. But at the same time, like I agree that is the point. The point is to go through all these like kinds of questions and also to let them go. And I love doing the show, for the record. Like I love doing threshold things. I have changed so much as a person. I like myself so much better. I still struggle. Of course, we all joke like I'm the baddie of the lodge, 100%. I agree. I cop to it. But like I like doing the show. I love doing the show. I love where it has brought me and like allowed me to meet people. And the mostly is the people in our group chat, if I'm being honest. It's not about like any like magician. And like also like for the record, it's like people ask me, like I got asked by that Frater RC guy he's in the Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucian and all this in Vancouver. He was like, "What's your show about, Jin?" And I was like, it's one for the fucking Aetherwave. It's one for the fucking archive. It is one for the webways. I always knew that, and I said it and I was always clear about it. I knew exactly what my show was. It was a true KO show. I knew right away. I just never wanted to say it. I was always really scared to say it, to be honest. And that was the first time I really said it out loud. And I was like, yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. I do practice Dharma, so it's inevitable that Dharma gets brought up on my show and on this show. It's inevitable because it's a part of who I am. Like it's a part of like how I understand reality. Especially if we're talking about metaphysics, right? But on like saints, like, yeah, it's been great. It's like been horrendous at times. Like I used to hate myself on recording, and now I kind of think I'm funny and charming. So I don't know. Maybe it's like that is the ego thing, and like I just think, or maybe I'm just like a big fucking idiot, and I just don't know. Like I can't tell. Like I just fall in love with myself like every time. Maybe that's true, but I actually like doing it, and I like being in discourse, and I think that is also very ionic, because I think that's, as I've always said, and as you've always said, Solar too, is that word cells and magicians might honestly be the same thing. And so that is what my show is, and that's what even this show is, because that's why we always stick to like the speculative or the discourse layer. It's not that I don't like discussing practical magic. Of course we can discuss practical magic, but where is really magic fundamental? Magic is really fundamentally in your own mind. Kabbalah is even in your own mind. Like, this is where I am more of a, I use Kabbalah more as a hermeneutic, a speculative hermeneutic, to sort of understand Western magic and Western systems. Because as I always said, everything can be mapped onto the tree and everything can be also understood through the tree, depending on how flexible you are. So I don't know. I think that that's all like important little notes. Anyways, I hope that answered some of Solar's points. I think they were all really good though. I think that, yeah, we have to. I'm just embracing the aeonic kind of framework. Like, yeah, we're all scions. Well, not all of us, but you know, the special ones among us. Yeah, and that's where a practice sadhana should take you. It should take you to like a place of clarity, of diamond thunder, of like writing the polarities, of inspiration, of like the aether wave, of seeing it, of being able to maybe even write things on it. I'm not saying I've ever done that. I'm just giving an idea. Maybe you can. Maybe you can rewrite reality from it. That's a very KO way to say it. But probably not true. Probably not wrong either. Anyways, I'm sorry. Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. I want to add a little bit more to what Solar was talking about, intuition. I even had a video on that, but it was a long time ago or something. But anyways, if we go to the word itself, intuition, right? We have in, is inside, and tuition, if you go back to Latin, tueri, and so on, it's look. So you're literally looking inside of you. That's why, as Solar said, it is much faster than reasoning, just odd-like, because you're already getting the information. You don't have to reprocess it. You don't have to literally, like in programming, we have like cache. So that's the thing. You're getting the thing already ready, and it's fast. You don't need to reprocess it. And you can even think about it again, if it's like a if we're talking about the bodies, right, having multiple subtle bodies and so on, there is even the intuition body, and it is much higher. You can say, for example, you can say it sits in Binah. And if it sits in Binah, it is connected, at least in the Kabbalah that I was initiated and I like to play with, is connected both to the high priestess, which is from Kether to Binah. So again, the air, the intuition, and so on, so on. And it goes down to Tiferet through the path of Zain, through the path of the sword, again, Gemini, and cutting through the bullshit, right? Getting it straight. So most definitely listen to your intuition and learn to listen to it, first of all. And when you do listen to it. Don't ignore it. It's the most stupid thing you can do, because it 99.9% of the times it will be completely right. And when it's not right, maybe you misunderstood it. So again, don't try to play with lower spheres if the higher spheres are already giving you what is there to be done. That's the main idea. And I would say, though, that gut feeling and so on, the animalistic side, does also exist, but it's a different thing, and it will be more automatic. But again, that's probably something that doesn't happen that often, because for you to reach that, you probably have to be in a state where you go down to the animalistic part of you. So, like, I don't know, when you're going through too much stress or whatever. So usually that doesn't happen. So if it's something, most likely, and you're relaxed and so on, it's going to be intuition. So listen to that.
I just want to say this before I let Monty go really quick, is that you brought up Bena. Well, that is interesting, because that's what I was trying to remember, what I forgot, what I was trying to say to Solar about the sort of like self-reflexive guru, and you also brought this up, Matt. So yeah, it is. It's Mahakala. Mahakala is the primordial guru at that layer. So you like see him in the carnal ground, recognize him. Okay, you guys have a little convo. Break free of Bina, break free of Saturn. Okay, you're breaking free of the lead. How do you break free? Well, this has come up before. There's an idea that when you shine green light on a lead ball, that it is the color of movement, but it actually isn't. It's the color of illusion or delusion. It's kind of an interesting idea. But it's like, it looks like a serpent traveling over Saturn or traveling over the lead ball. It can look textural like that. So I do think that that's interesting. It's like you see Mahakala, you say, okay, I'm outside of time. I'm like past this point in the primordial void, you could say. But there's something else there. And that is how Tantra posits it. There's something else outside, beyond his carnal ground. There's a whole mandala to explore. So once you leave that conceptual way of thinking, that Saturnian sort of like fixed view of reality, there's still a lot more to go. There's a whole world of spirit. That's why the Bardo texts become so important. Because there's like a whole other life there. So I don't know. That are just some ideas I had. Okay, sorry, Monty. Please go ahead.
No, yeah, I thought all that was incredible, and we're talking a lot about like instincts here, and I think it's it's really important to respect, but also like put boundaries on the extremes of instinct. Like animal instinct is what protects you from holding your hand next to an open flame. And the other extreme is like I we always see this. There's always like some like viral post from like some weird like non-binary person talking about like reinventing friendship as a platonic like shipping or something like that. From the cosplay crowd. But you know, staying away from these two boundaries. But it really, instinct is built off of practice and discipline. It's you gain instincts by swinging a sword every day for knowing like the weight of it and how your body reacts to like impact. Like you know when you start your car and something's wrong, more to speak, that you've done it a million times, you do it every day, and then when you do it and it's different this time, then your instincts kind of take over and like, well, like something's clearly wrong here. Like your check engine like doesn't need to be on to let you know that like we have a problem. And yeah, and like that really is just like that is the tree. It's going and just being disciplined, and this is something that our me and Jin's episodes of Threshold Saints are like always about is going and like putting in the work, and not in like some facetious like obnoxious like get rich die trying guy but way, but like you have to put the work in. You have to like be conscious of your activities, and that's how you go and like build good instincts and good like spiritual muscles. Doing good deeds for others, and meditation, and like truly listening, learning, and being open is like how we will make it.
Hell yeah, I agree with that. And Monty and I have an upcoming episode, so I just want to shout that out. Obviously, I'm not saying what series we're doing. Yeah, because I saw you fucking Substack thieves. People will say, "Oh, I'm like the coolest, like alt-lit guy of all time," and then you find out that they've been lurking in your group chat for like 6 months, stealing your fucking like all the shit that you talked about, not just you, but like everyone in the group chat, and then it becomes like Substack posts, or my favorite game that they play is they'll like things that you retweet, and then those will end up on their show the next fucking week. It's like, yeah, you didn't have taste, so you had to steal mine. That sucks. I'm just saying. I'm saying it's fine. I get it. I'm not cool enough to come on your show. Okay. There's a lot of people who do like me, though. I'm just saying. Like, I mean, in like the greater podcasting way. There are people who will fuck with me. I do get like nice. People do think I'm cool. I know Solar doesn't think I'm that cool, but other people do think I'm cool. I'm just kidding. I don't know if Solar thinks I'm cool, honestly. I feel like an idiot most of the time. To be honest, I'm just saying in a broad way to everybody. I feel like, why do they even look to me to give like answers to anything? It's not like I feel like I'm not equipped to give an answer. I feel like I'm a good Kabbalist, and I feel like I'm a good Tantric and a middling Buddhist. But my insights feel so niche and so, everybody is not the biggest fan of my sort of like how. Again, it's my presentation, I think, is very non-dual, and I think it's not intentional. And I think also I can be a little harsh, I think, if we're being honest. But I'm sometimes okay with the confrontation because I just like to see sometimes what other people say in response. Sometimes I think a lot of my visceral language is actually just to see what people say in response. It's not actually that I'm mad. It's not even that I'm feeling particularly mean, but I like that kind of discursive fire can, like, something maybe more true can emerge in it. And maybe that is sort of like what my idea of Seth is too, or Seth, not Seth. Seth. Is that is how it's described. If we're saying Vajrasattva is like the primordial guru, he is also the sun. He is also Vajrakumara. And he is the Puranic sun, like we were talking about Advaita. There is no Advaita without Shiva. So you must admit God is real. If you practice Advaita, you have to admit God is real. And I admit that God is real. But I also think that it's also not real. I think it's both. That's why I can't be Advaita. Because I think God is real, if you want my opinion. But what do I think God is? I think it's Diamond Thunder. And I think it's accessible to everybody. So, does that mean I'm God? No. It doesn't actually. It doesn't even mean the space that I get to sometimes is God. But it maybe means for like a brief, like millisecond, I can glimpse something over the ocean. A lightning strike. Maybe I see a Dakini. Who knows? I'm just saying that you see wonderful, sometimes you can see wonderful things, or like, it is kind of like, people talk about it like it's downloads. It's not downloads. It's not anything. It's I don't know. For me, it's never been like that. It is totally experiential. It's kind of like conceptual images. It's very filmic. I think that is maybe why I also like film, and why I like watch less of them than I ever did in my life. Like, I watch less film now than I've ever watched in my life. I watch almost nothing, like on like visual. And I think because the experiences are so visual that I honestly almost physically cannot process images unless I'm intentional about, like, I'm going to watch this for a series. So why I'm saying that is I do think that I think everybody should just do the practices, and then everybody can come to the same conclusion. And I don't have to be a schizo on my own island anymore. I don't know. That's an idea. I'm sorry, I kind of got away from the point. Anyways, Joshua, why don't you introduce yourself and say hello?
Thank you so much, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here. My apologies. I worked a little bit late tonight. But anyway, thanks for hosting. And actually, I see Monty's waving or something. So anyway, thank you.
Honestly, I just wanted to do a cool space. We don't have to keep it going that long. Maybe we'll end it in like a minute. But thank you, Joshua, so much. I know you were waiting forever. I want to do a room shout out because I didn't do one at the beginning. So of course, the Grey Lodge. What are we? We're a group of meta magicians. Frau Bloker just left. Logi, great poet as well. Joshua the Branch just spoke. Obviously, another lodge member. Oh, she came back good. Cassandra. Thank you so much. Logi, content creator, Etsy store, purveyor. Check out Cassandra. And also, obviously, she's in our group chat. Trenorous, thank you so much. Second time, I think, or third time. Appreciate you. Always love seeing your engagement on the timeline. Eros Up, of course, we love Eros. She is like the e-girl for all the weird esoteric e-boys. They all try and add her to their group chats, but she chose ours, so we must be doing something right. Thank you so much, Eros. Check out Eros on YouTube. Appreciate it so much. Vitali Victorian, Vitally Victorian. I know I'm a little retarded. Vitally Victorian. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you. And does anyone have any last words? I'll let the mic be open if anyone has any last words. Otherwise, I'll say them.
Well, it is auspicious. We got that whole Friday the 13th Saturn and Aries thing. So for what it's worth, I just thought I'd mention that.
Well, that is kind of like the perfect astrological conjunction for Aeon of the Sun space. So, there might be have been a smart young magician that thought of that when he was arranging astrological timing, was that like, yeah, this would be a great time to talk about Aeon of the Sun. As I've always said, for Aeon of the Daughter, the sun and the daughter actually like coincide, and that doesn't mean that they're lovers, that doesn't mean that they're anything, but it can, but it's different ideas of it, right? But really you could understand it as love, like, and will together. That's another way to like describe the exact same thing. So you can say it's literal, you can say it's not literal, whatever level of kaya you take it as. But please just understand that that has to be under your will, like how you discern that and how you decide that should be in your will, as well as in the practice of bodhicitta, discerning wisdom, non-duality, not Advaita. It's not that I think Advaita is wrong. I think there's a level of Sri Vidya Tantra, which I've talked about before, that gets almost non. I call it almost non-duality. They get it right. They have the goddess, the Tripura Sundari, outside the cube, so she's like both the cube and then the spirit, the numinousness outside of it. And the husband is there, but he's sleeping, or the husband is there, but he's like in her heart or something. And like, so they just have her as like the cause of everything, but she's kind of outside of cause too. I could be okay with that, like comfortable with that, like whatever. It could be a goddess. It could be, I mean, I don't really care. Could do more Jewish version and Hashem, whatever. I don't care. I'm just saying I don't really think of it like that. But I'm saying that there almost is like a layer I can kind of get what they're talking about. But I just feel like, just conceptually, I think it's more freeing to just imagine yourself as like a causal agent in the multiverse. I think that is more Silver Surfer, and I think that is more hermetic, but in the cool hermetic way, not necessarily in the right hand path hermetic way. Okay, yeah, Joshua, please go ahead.
Thank you. I actually did think of something to mention. Um, of course, people probably are aware of the story of the Freemasons getting burned at the stake and all that. That's where Friday the 13th kind of gets its start from, And if it, and, I'd like to think too, like what happened because of that was a lot of them kind of got spread out all over the place, because a lot of them did survive while some of them did get burnt to the stake. But anyway, Freemasonry did play a role in the creation of the United States. So, for what it's worth, this is, for a lot of Masons out there, this is an important date for them to remember. And it was when a lot of persecution occurred. And, so if people ever wonder why they're so secretive, well, they have good reason to be. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that from the historical context.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Okay, Solar, please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and then I'm gonna have to dip. So this has been a wonderful space. Thank you guys. So it's funny, like I get insecure sometimes talking on spaces like this because I feel like people come for the really like edgy and esoteric shit. They want to hear about the Ona path workings. They want to hear about what I get up to in the woods, with the boys or whatever. The yeah. The black magic stuff. And it's funny because like that's all well and good. And, people can get into whatever kind of trouble they feel like getting into. I'm predisposed to do the same. But at the end of the day, something as like mundane and basic and open as like being aware enough to see how to be able to watch and feel your rational discursive mind and your desires latch onto and redirect your natural intuitive knowing, right? Because especially as we were talking about how they work at different speeds. So once you get to a point where you can literally watch your mind say, even though your instinct or your intuitive sense is pointing in this way, let me try to manipulate, let me try to convince you myself to actually go in some other direction, right? And you start to see how you have all this kind of bullshit that you're like fighting for control with, right? And you get really good at like seeing this and like feeling like, because these things have like somatic sensory feels, like you can feel the constriction in your sort of head and your mind and oftentimes in your body too, and you start to really see how you work as this like composite system. And that like just awareness, like seeing what's going on, is like 80% of the way to making the changes so that you can act in a different way, act more unified, act under will, under that into whatever the hell you want to do, right? But you have to notice it first. But like no one wants to hear that, right? Like you want to hear about like, fucking sending Mithra out to like, slay your enemies or whatever the fuck, but yeah, I don't know. There's kind of this like funny inner dialectic that I always have on like how to present what I do and sort of like what we do, like, in a public facing manner. Um, so yeah, that's always there. It's always fun. But yeah, I love these spaces a lot, and just want to say it was good to get the gang back together. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you for giving me so much time, and you guys are always very generous. So yeah, just happy to be here, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Solar. Appreciate that. I think there's something interesting about the Aeon, the Seti and Stele, is that they talk a lot about this like kind of like fraternity of brothers or whatever. I guess I'm just like too much of a loner. I just like to do magic on my own in the woods. I just want to say that. So, we can only, some of us are just werewolves on our own. Yeah, Solar, so good. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, I said I was gonna go, but that I totally get that and I vibe with that. But the one counterpoint to that is there was a time when I skewed much more heavily toward the rational discursive, right? Like I felt like nothing was real if I couldn't fully wrap my arms around it and like rationally understand it, right? I led with that at the expense of the experiential and the intuitive. And at the time, I needed the support of other people who could see what I was doing, see how I was using my capacity for like intellection to mislead myself and go and deliberately put myself confidently off track. I needed someone else to be able to call me out until I got to a point where I could sort of like reliably catch myself and learn how to self-correct. And again, it's not binary. It's not that I never listen to other people nowadays or that I never would have developed that ability, but I definitely think there's a role, particularly like in the earlier stages of someone's development, where you can really like catalyze and accelerate that development process by getting the direct support from other people who will call you on your bullshit and maybe give you some positive guidance as well as to be able to like model what this should look like at a more advanced state. Like that can be very inspiring as well as just very instructive. So I think they're like, if you're a loner and like what if you're a Jin cell, like with what he just said, like that's awesome, and you can get there doing that. But if you're also like more socially inclined or whatever, or some anywhere on that like that spectrum, right? 'Cause this is an inclusive space, wherever you are on the spectrum, there's a path forward for you, so you can make it work.
Absolutely, and I agree with that the outer instruction is very useful. But I just think that there's a lot of information, so people have to have an innate, natural, like fire of discernment, and they have to be able to exercise that, and they also have to know what their own will is. And as I've often said, your will is not the same as your desire, although those two things can coincide. That might be true, but it's like it's really up to you. You have to be like the agent of your will. So I think, and that is what Seth is about for me. He is the one who wields the adamantine or diamond thunder sword. So if he wants something, he's going to have to make a path forward for it. Yes, Monty, please go ahead.
I really like that back and forth that you guys just had about the about like the solo Wicca and the coven with and I really do think that when it comes to especially like dense topics like this, um first and foremost I do think that threshold saints and like these spaces are like truly like a paramount and like truly like something to hang your hat on level of like not many people can do this. To go and create like a space where all of these different schools of thought come together and mold in a dissident and like what you were saying before about how your podcast is for like is like just like in the digital ether. I think that that's like an accomplishment. So first and foremost, like kudos and flowers for Jen. Give it round of applause, round of applause. Um, but but going back to the whole like you can only go and have these conversations and you can only go and have a level of trust where you can go and really test the boundaries of your cognitive spiritual and whatever thought processes of your own when you go and build fraternity, you have to go and practice black magic in the woods by yourself, and also in a group setting, because you have to build that bond. You have to cultivate the self, and you also need to go and find, fellow herders in the process. This is a coalition that's building, and we only get stronger when we go and build ourselves up so that we can go and support the rest of the network. And that's all I wanted to say on that.
Oh, I agree with all that. I'm just being a hard ass because I am choosing rhetorically to respond in that way. It's not necessarily that I believe it or not believe it. You have to discern for yourself. So, no, I'm not as anti-institutional as I sound, and I'm probably more anti-institutional than I articulate. So, resolve that paradox. Okay, so I think, yeah, we're at a great time. 21:12. Okay. Have a great night, Nagas. Everybody do your sadhanas. Oh, Solar, go ahead. Sorry. Oh, was that a wave or a hand up? I think it was a wave. Okay. Good night, Nagas. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Everybody stay safe. Surf the Aether wave. Don't stay fixed to anything. Fuck the Klippas. Fuck the Archons. We're going to burn it all down and build it all back better.